Kidney disease is labeled the silent killer. It has no physical symptoms. You need to be aware of your body and go and get your blood work tested at least every year. 37 million Americans have kidney disease.
40,000 transplants were completed last year. That's a lot of people donating.
Kidney disease is one of the top 10 causes of death in the US. It kills more people each year than breast or prostate cancer.
Hey everyone, wow, you just heard some startling statistics and facts from today's guests about kidney disease, how it can affect any of us at any age, and once again, why we all need to be our own advocates when it comes to our health.
Right.
Happy Kidney Awareness Month, everyone, and welcome to the Crazy Amazing Humans podcast, where we highlight everyday humans doing crazy, amazing things. I'm Katrina Carlson.
And I'm Jefferson Denham. We want to thank you so much for joining us from wherever you are on this crazy, amazing planet. We believe it is more important than ever to stay positive, stay active, and stay connected.
No truer words, Jefferson. And we're so glad you're with us today. In honor of National Kidney Month, Elisa and Michael Schenkman are with us, who, along with their kids, created the GOFARR Kidney Fund, which supports kidney-related clinical programs and research at Children's Hospital Los Angeles. You may remember we featured GOFARR Kidney Fund in our Halloween episode because it was a charity we were supporting at our annual Halloween party and fundraiser sponsored by Crazy Amazing Humans this past year.
Yes, they have such a powerful story to tell. We'll also be speaking with Beth Berry, who is a part of the core kidney team at UCLA and is also a kidney transplant recipient. And boy, does she have a story about that, right, Kat?
Yes, she does.
So before you think kidney disease isn't relevant to your life, consider this. Kidney disease is one of the most common causes of death in the US and around the world. It affects all ages, not only older folks, but young adults, children, and as we find out today, even babies.
Right. And we just want to come right out and encourage everyone listening to become an organ donor if you're not already. You're going to hear how a donor saved the life of one of our guests. And our conversation covers some really surprising facts and stories that are not only poignant and moving, they will keep you on the edge of your seat. So let's get to it. We always want to express how much we truly appreciate you and want to remind you that you are crazy amazing.
I want you to feel, I want you to feel something crazy, crazy amazing.
Hi, this is Ricky Cage, and you're listening to the Crazy Amazing Humans podcast. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and on the Crazy Amazing Humans YouTube channel.
Hey everyone. So we're here with our guests, Elisa and Michael Schenkman. Michael is an entertainment attorney in Los Angeles, and Elisa is an entrepreneur. And together they have 3 children, and they are both trustees and on the foundation board for Children's Hospital of Los Angeles. Also, Elisa and Michael, along with their 3 children, are the founders of the GOFARR Kidney Fund, which supports all kidney-related issues at the Children's Hospital Los Angeles, including transplants, the dialysis center, and the GOFARR lab.
A little bit later in this episode, we'll be joined by Beth Berry. Now, Beth was an early childhood educator and administrator for almost 50 years, including being an admissions director at Brentwood School of Los Angeles. She is now an advocate for families experiencing kidney-related medical issues as part of the core, C-O-R-E, core kidney team at UCLA. Oh, and is also a kidney transplant recipient herself.
Elisa and Michael, my friends, welcome to the Crazy Amazing Humans podcast.
Woo!
Thank you for having us.
We're so glad you're here. Okay, so let's jump into this. Can you tell our listeners how you both personally became involved with kidney-related issues, basically telling us your experience with your son, Gabriel?
Our beautiful twins were born on July 4th. in 2001. And we brought home, the doctors came in, they checked our beautiful babies. They had an older sibling, Shelby, at home waiting to greet them. And we came home, and both of them, they both seemed fine, truthfully, at the moment. And eventually Gabriel, he was becoming like a little listless, and he never had the same rosy cheeks as his twin sister. And he would cry differently. And, like in the back of your mind as parents, after especially, just going through delivery and being home and overwhelmed with everything, you're paying attention, but you're like, oh, if the doctors say your child's fine, you just assume they're fine. And then Gabriel we had his bris at day 8. And about 2 days later, Michael's sister came in the room, and she said to us exactly what we really needed to hear, to tell you the truth, was Gabriel does not look very good. And we agreed, and we took him to an emergency room. And unfortunately, that emergency room drew his blood, and they got back the results. But they didn't even believe the results. They thought all of his blood had hemolyzed and that the results were not correct. And we went home. And the next day we went to see our pediatrician, who was on call at the time. It was an older man. And he told us our child was dehydrated. And then the next day, thank goodness it was Monday, our pediatrician said, you need to come in here. She called first thing in the morning. I don't like what happened this weekend. We need to recheck Gabriel's blood. So we went in, and seriously, Michael and I were both in there. We were exhausted. We knew in our instincts something was wrong with our child. And she walked in and she said, I just called an ambulance. Gabriel's about to go into cardiac arrest. We don't have time. Let's go. And she grabbed our baby and we ran into Michael's car. I just had a C-section, and I wasn't feeling great, like even like a week later, basically 10 days later. And the next thing I know, our life changed, because we received news that unfortunately Gabriel was born with hypoplastic kidneys, which means small kidneys. And we were told that his kidneys were not, eventually he would need a kidney transplant. So then, we wanted to make sure Amanda didn't have the same problem, his twin sister, and we did the test, and thankfully she was healthy. But, it changed us, obviously. There's nothing scarier than first having your child knowing that he almost died. Had we not gotten him to the hospital at that time, it could have been a very different story, unfortunately.
Wow. And how could this not change you, right? And Michael, you had said that you felt when you got this news, it was like getting a gut punch, right?
Right.
And I would think all of our listeners who are parents can imagine this feeling. So emotionally, Michael, let's start with you. How did you and Elisa navigate those first moments? I mean, my goodness, your life has changed, as Elisa said.
Right. I mean, I guess this is a point we can universalize it a little bit to an extent, because I've talked to, it's funny, I had lunch with a guy the other day whose kid, they found out he had type 1 diabetes. And, it's like, it's that feel. When I said it was like a gut punch, it was almost like you couldn't breathe. And I think that, everything is relative in life. We know a lot of people have had things with their children that were more severe than what we went through. But when it's your child and it's life and death. So, we were told one day out of the blue, Gabe was going to have a kidney transplant one day. And, we had not been involved in that world of transplants and all that. We didn't know what that meant really. But when you hear something like that, it is life and death, right?
Yes.
And so it was like this feeling, and the gentleman that I had lunch with, he had a similar thing where you feel like you can't breathe, like you were told with this news at that moment, right? And you just like, it is so overwhelming that's the gut punch. That's the inability to take a breath. And then, as time goes on, you realize that with kidney transplants, the science is well known, right? They knew originally, they said, Gabe, they didn't know if it was after 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Miraculously, and to his benefit, it was when he was 15. So,
Wow.
which is amazing. So, with the great care at Children's Hospital and the amount of kidney function he had, he was able to keep his original kidneys functioning longer, which is good because, as Mary Beth can tell you, and she will, once you have a kidney transplant or any transplant, from that moment on, you are taking anti-rejection meds, right? Because you need to trick your body to believe that you still have the kidney you have now is your original kidney. So it was to Gabe's benefit that we could wait until he was 15, and we could talk about the transplant later on that.
Right.
So you all did not know a lot about what does this mean, kidney transplant, and you had to monitor him because you didn't know any day it could be that his kidney would stop performing, right? Stop working. And so you all had to educate yourselves, I'm sure, to figure out, okay, what's going on. And so not a lot of people know exactly what kidneys do, let's say.
I sure don't. I sure don't.
Okay,
I'm going to
Jefferson.
confess.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of want to double check. Okay, the liver does this, the kidney does that.
Right.
And then so I was wondering, could you all tell us exactly what that is, what renal failure is and kidney failure? Could you explain some of that to us? Because I'm sure you had to educate yourselves.
Yeah, we did. I mean, for the good thing with Gabe, though, we knew we were going to have lead time, right? We knew that it wasn't going to be like Tuesday he's fine, and the following Wednesday he's going to need a kidney transplant. We knew there was going to be 9 months to a year at a certain point where the doctor said, okay, we're getting to that point, his function, because they measure. I mean, Gabe, the hard part was, every 3 months, or was it every 3 months, honey, where you would take Gabe, or I would take Gabe to the lab and he'd get his blood drawn. So imagine, a youngster, from inception, the beginning of his life until, he was always getting poked, and they would always test his blood to see what the key marker. One of them is called creatinine, and creatinine is I think it's a waste product that your muscles create. And as your kidney, with normal kidneys, the kidneys are composed of, there's millions and millions of these filters I think they're called glomeruli. And basically, that's what your kidneys consist of, all these little filters. And basically these filters, if they're functioning properly, they eliminate impurities and waste, bad things in your blood, and they filter it out and everything's fine. He just didn't have as many filters as a normal kidney would. So we knew over time, we would watch as his creatinine level, would increase over time. There were other things looked at, potassium and things like that. And that's ultimately, at some point, renal failure is where your body, right, your kidneys can no longer filter the blood properly. And what we were able to avoid with Gabe is, you always hear dialysis, right? Dialysis means that your kidneys are no longer functioning, and therefore you need to have a machine, right, do the filtering for you. So people will go in 3 days a week, as I understand it. Gabe was able to avoid this because we knew that at some point he was going to need a transplant. But that's basically it. When your kidneys aren't performing properly, you're in that stage 5 of, I don't know exactly what stage you would go on dialysis, but that's what dialysis is. It's filtering the blood.
Well, as Katrina was saying, I'm sure you guys have learned so many things. So, Lisa, I'm going to throw it back to you. What are some other facts, surprising facts maybe, that you've learned from your journey? Because I know for me, like I just confessed, I don't know didn't know what my kidneys do. Yeah. And we got so much going on underneath the skin.
A lot of organs in your body. Yes.
Yeah. And so what are some other maybe surprising things you've learned through your journey?
Well, one thing is, I didn't know the kidney is the most complicated organ in your body because it does all these filtration, little glomeruli. And also over 102,000 people in the United States are waiting for a kidney transplant, all ages.
Wow.
babies to, 80s maybe. And
Yeah.
That's amazing.
yeah, it's amazing. But I think regarding our journey, it's interesting because I'll never forget when Michael and I walked into Children's Hospital Los Angeles for the first time. If you've never been there, I suggest everybody go and have a visit because it changes you.
But Elisa, explain the connection, why we ended up there. Because I think what's
Oh
going
yeah,
to be great
that's
about
this
this,
is
what's
a
going to be great about this podcast is
Yeah,
we're going
because-
to see all these connections.
yeah. We live on the west side. I mean, I would have never. By the way, I grew up here. I had never in Los Angeles. I've been here for many, many, many years, along with Michael. I'd never been to Children's Hospital, and our pediatrician happened to have done her residency under the head kidney nephrologist of Children's Hospital Los Angeles. So he ended up coming to the hospital where Gabe was, when he was a newborn. And that's when we found out we had kidney disease. So that's how we ended up there. And when we walked through those doors, it's like Michael said, you think you have a problem. When you walk in there and you see what's really going on in that hospital, your heart just takes a turn in a different direction. You are changed forever.
Yeah.
Which happened to us. And I think the crazy part of our journey is all of a sudden, obviously, I was in a very dark place. It was very difficult. I had one child at home. I now had twins. I had a healthy twin. I had a sick twin. I had a beautiful, an incredible husband. We had family, but you're so worried about obviously the future of your baby. And Michael and I are like, how can we take this really crazy, scary situation and turn it into something positive? And that's how we started GOFARR, which stood at the time for Gabriel's Organization Funding All Renal Research. And I think it was 2004, if I have that correctly. We just started sending little letters to our friends and family, just saying, we're starting to raise funds for nephrology. By the way, nephrology gets no attention. They really don't have resources. We were the first family ever to come into that hospital to raise money for the nephrology unit.
Wow.
Which is
It's
great.
not
for
as
you.
sexy. It's not as sexy as
Yeah.
And it does not get enough attention, unfortunately. And I think the hardest part is, honestly, the majority of us may end up in kidney failure one day.
Yeah.
I think it's 1 out of 8. I could be wrong. Mary Beth may know that statistic better than I do. But so we started just sending out letters to our friends and we started raising a little bit of funds. But then the really beautiful part of our journey, truthfully, has been our community coming behind us and supporting us, along with our children and our children's friends. I mean, we were raising money by letters, and then it was our twins' B'nai Mitzvah project. And Amanda's like, why are we not having an event? Gabe's twin sister, because when you have kidney disease, it doesn't just affect that person. It really affects the entire family. And, Amanda always felt guilty that she was a healthy twin. And Shelby was always, feeling bad too, because she didn't have anything wrong with her. So I think, and then Gabe only wanted to be normal. And by the way, to this day and through his entire life, you would have never known there was anything wrong with this child. But I think the beauty of everything is, for example, Katrina, you do this Halloween event every year.
I was just going to bring this up. Go ahead.
And she, out of the goodness of her heart, constantly raises money for us. And ask for donations. We have a very good friend who just gave a kidney to her father, and the grandfather's grandchildren just raised $8,000 for us.
Wow. Well, what you're describing, Elisa, really is kind of our whole mission with Crazy Amazing Humans is really to tell stories, have people get inspired to help others. And then it all pays forward, and it just becomes this positive feedback loop of people helping other people. And it's always been a privilege to be your friend, friend of the Schenkmans here. The Carlsons are friends of the Schenkmans. And, we watched Gabe grow up, and, Elisa, you're one of my best friends. And so seeing your family deal with all of this, and watching people gather around you, and watching everything happen, we have so much more of this story to tell, has been really inspiring. And that's the kind of thing that inspired me to want to even do this podcast, because of the people. When you see how people get behind others, no matter what they're going through. And I think we have a lot of that going on in our world that we don't always talk about. And so that's what we're doing on this podcast. And I love hearing that you just kind of brought that up organically, Elisa, of how this journey has, so much of it has been this positive outpouring towards your family, and watching your own family deal with it, and how everyone has gathered around it. It's not changed, that it's difficult, that it's challenging, that you go to dark places, but you all have risen above it in so many ways. And it is truly, truly inspiring, which is why I'm so thrilled to be telling your story right now. So you were saying this earlier, Elisa, that you made an intentional choice to take a very challenging situation, turn it into something positive. And that is like what we're doing, highlighting this kind of human spirit, on crazy, amazing humans doing these things. So the GOFARR Kidney Fund, how have you guys been effective? You've raised all this money, and it's gone somewhere to Children's Hospital of Los Angeles. Jefferson and I have been in that hospital many times because we've played fundraisers there ourselves. And right there in the lobby, they have this beautiful lobby, and going up, and yes, it is incredibly impactful to see what these kids go through. You all have raised money, but you've also started a lab there that did not exist before you all got involved. So tell us a little bit about what GOFARR Kidney Fund is doing now.
Going back to Children's Hospital for a moment, the beauty of Children's Hospital is that 70% of the kids are on Medi-Cal.
Wow.
So you're talking about your mission and all that. I encourage everyone who's listening to this podcast, go to Children's Hospital. And when you get there, it just recenters you, because you're like, when you look at the census of that hospital and the work that the hospital does for the population of Los Angeles, and 70% of the kids are on Medi-Cal, you realize it recenters your psyche and everything. You walk in there and you rebalances your day. If you're having a bad day, you go in there and you realize what's really important, And the beauty of GOFARR is we raised funds. We're able to, raise funds for the dialysis center. So there's the GOFARR Dialysis Center at Children's Hospital. And we made, dialysis center, the children would go there, 3 days a week for 4 to 6 hours a day. And we wanted to make it a more pleasant place for the children when they're there. So we got, iPads and better televisions, and we beautified the place and all that. So they could be, basically it would be a better place for them to be. And then the great thing is we were able to start this thing called the GOFARR Lab at the Saban Research Institute. And our lab directors are Dr. Laura Perrin and Dr. Roger DiFilippo. And we got lucky, they're just really amazing people. And we started with research. And the beauty is that with the funds that were raised via friends, family, business associates, that became seed money for a lab that is now an NIH recognized lab. They've probably written, they published probably 30 articles, and they are now, getting grants from the NIH and all that. And
so that's National Institutes of Health in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, which is the gold standard.
Academy Award.
And basically, it's a world-renowned lab. I mean, Dr. Perrin goes all over the world now speaking. And, it's just, it's really gratifying. Look, Katrina, if I came to you and Ken, and said, hey, will you donate to Children's Hospital? Yes, you would, because we're asking, because, you give it because we're your friends, right? Same thing, vice versa. But what's really nice for Elisa and I to know that not only did people support us, but we were able to use that money in a way that has created an amazing institution, this lab, that is achieving results. And, it feels really good. It's been a really amazing experience. And then Elisa and I, the really nice thing is, we both stayed involved with Children's Hospital. We're both on the foundation board. We're trustees. and it's become part of our lives, you know. And again, we'll talk about connections a little later with Mary Beth, and the fact that our pediatrician did a residency at Children's, and we got to know the head nephrologist there because, you know, they had a relationship, and now we're very involved with Children's Hospital. It's an amazing thing. And you kind of, you know, you start thinking about, was it all meant to be that way? You know what I mean? And
you've done a lot of good for that hospital, and you've really raised awareness, like no one
vice
else.
versa.
Yeah.
And vice
Well, the
versa.
hospital's done great for you, but yeah, exactly. I mean, it's sort of a synergistic relationship.
Absolutely.
That's the beauty of helping others. You know, it's like it comes right back at you. We always say doing good does you good.
Right. And as a matter of fact, Elisa, you have a story to share with regards to your direct involvement in Gabriel's kidney transplant later in life when he was about 15. Is that correct?
On his 15th birthday, he was in the hospital after the transplant. And I was very blessed. I was able to give life to my son for the second time.
Hold on. I'm so sorry to stop you. Go back a step, though. He needed a transplant.
Needed a transplant.
How did you find the right donor?
Explain the process. It's interesting.
How did you find the right donor?
Well, well, I was lucky to be his donor. I was blessed, and I was the chosen one, and I could not have been more happy. And by the way, if I had more kidneys to give, I would be giving them tomorrow to anyone that needed them. Because, you know, I have a saying, and it's love life, live life, give life. We're all on this planet, you know, and there are so many people out there that are struggling to stay alive who just need a kidney. And once they get that transplant, their life changes. They're able to live again. They're able to get 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20, who knows? Who knows? And we were all born with 2 kidneys, and you only need one to live. But
Interesting fact, though. This is interesting. So Gabe, just so you guys, you know, he had 2 kidneys that were smaller. They took Elisa's kidney and gave him a 3rd kidney. They don't disconnect. They don't take out the other kidney. So, but eventually.
Oh, I didn't know that.
See
Okay.
that?
Me neither.
Yeah. So I think that what happens is the dominant kidney, which was Elisa's new kidney, takes over. And what we were told is the other 2 kidneys eventually, you know, they just shrivel up and they stop functioning. But I did not know that. But that's
Interesting.
I did not know that either. That's a really
So
interesting.
really quickly, before we move on, I just wanted to say, if anybody's inspired to donate a kidney, how do they do that?
Oh, there's kidney registries all over the place.
Okay.
Well, you could even pick a certain hospital if you want a certain hospital to give to. You know,
we were fortunate though, right? Elisa,
we were really fortunate. We got the phone call. The phone call I was always dreading to get, you know, because for years you're living a life waiting. Truthfully. You're waiting because you know that this is going to happen. You want to be careful where you take family vacations because, you know, God forbid Gabe gets sick and ends up in a hospital somewhere. Or,
we'd never gone to Mexico, right?
We had never gone to Mexico. We never would go, you know, to different countries traveling just because we needed to protect him. And basically, when you get that phone call, it's like Michael says, it's like that gut. I'll never forget when I got that phone call. And our Dr. Greshkin called, Dr. Carl Greshkin, he just said, it's time. And I went, okay, well, what does that mean? So basically, we then start to see who matches Gabe's blood type, because you have to match somebody's blood type in order to give a kidney. And then from there, they just start doing tests, and I matched Gabe's blood type. And
So they were looking at us basically, right?
Do they always start with the family first?
Yeah, if they're willing to be part of that process. Yeah. And
Could you
basically,
imagine a sister going, yeah, how nice have you been to me lately?
trust me, I'm sure that happens. I've heard many stories from people who've had transplants. Yes.
I bet you have.
I have. And basically, though, you know, they picked me and I started the testing. And as a mom, it's like you just want to get to the end, like just take my kidney, give it to my son, let's move on. But it doesn't work like that. Psychologically, they're testing you. They're making sure you really want to be a donor. You know, you're having this test and that test. You're waiting for urine to come back and this test. I mean, I had a big scare at one point. We were waiting to find out if I was the donor, and they called and they said, it was a Friday, and I'll never forget that. They're like, you have to take more tests. We just found a spot on your lung. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So then you're like, okay, so now maybe there's something wrong with me. Like, you know, am I not going to be able to do this? And we had already, I mean, it had been a couple months already where I've been going to all these appointments, you know, dealing with stuff. So then I went back and we did further, like more invasive testing, and they found out I'm okay. So then we got a date. And the scariest part, the hardest part, and I'm going to say this, was probably for Michael. Because like I said, it affects the family. Yeah. And here I am, his wife, and I'm at USC Keck. Gabe is part of Children's Hospital. When you give a kidney, you can't be with your child because your child at Children's Hospital, and I had to be at USC Keck. So exactly what you see in movies when they take out a kidney and they put it in a cooler and they drive it over. That's so crazy. Here my poor husband is, and thank God I had a bunch of friends and family helping me. Michael came over obviously to be with me, but then he had to drive to Children's and be there for Gabriel.
So basically, Elisa, in the morning, it was like 7:30 in the morning where Elisa went. They started the operation. I left her, and then I drove over to Gabe. And at about eventually the transplant doctor. It's a very unique situation because Children's is a pediatric institution, and Lisa's an adult, so she was at USC Keck, and it's very unusual. But that's what happened in this particular situation. So I drove over there. And at 1:30, 2 o'clock, the transplant doctors came in and said it's time to do the transplant. Meanwhile, Lisa's still at USC. I'm at Children's with Gabe, and it was quite interesting. And it wasn't until 5 days later, honey, that you were able to be with Gabe, right?
I saw Gabe on his birthday on July 4th. I walked into his room for the first time.
Wow.
That must have been a real homecoming. And you were starting to say this, Elisa, but this idea that, you gave him life twice.
Yeah.
And
that's profound.
It really is.
It's what it is. I gave him life for the second time. If you really think about it, it's true. It was to give my son the best future he could ever have and live a totally normal life, which he is doing. He might be on anti-rejection medication, and I'm not downplaying that because, imagine being a 15-year-old kid and you're taking 10 pills a day at least. And if you miss a dose, it's life or death. You're back. You could end up on dialysis. I mean, we've been very blessed. Gabriel is on it. He has been very self-sufficient his entire life, truthfully. He's been involved. He's made this process, and we're very blessed, easy.
When Michael said that he drove from one hospital to the other, did you have a vision of him having the kidney in the car, turning his hat backward and going, so to Children's?
My biggest worry, truthfully, was God forbid there's an earthquake.
Oh my goodness.
Living in Los Angeles. The stuff that goes through your mind, like,
I got it.
There's an earthquake. What if he gets into a car accident? Like, there are so many things that could go wrong.
Absolutely.
And by the way, Gabe didn't have it easy post-transplant. He then started getting kidney stones. I mean, he had a lot of surgeries post-transplant. It was a really, really long journey for him.
And they modulate, they try to figure out like the dosage, and there are different anti-rejection drugs. Maybe someone responds better to one versus the other one. There was the one called tacrolimus and sirolimus, and eventually Gabe ended up, I think, on sirolimus because the other one he had issues with. So it's there's a trial and error there, but he received amazing care, and he's doing great. He's at University of Texas, and he orders all his own meds, and he's been doing that since, he went away to school, and we're very fortunate. And, we're just really fortunate.
Well, he's an amazing, successful, kind, fantastic kid who likes to have fun. He's a great guy. You guys have an amazing family. And Elisa, you gave your kidney, you had to heal and repair. And I'm just going to cut to the chase. You know, I think less than a year later, we were doing the LA Marathon together. Elisa, is that right?
6 months later.
6 months later, Elisa.
So, dear audience, what Katrina's not telling you is she carried Elisa because.
I carried Katrina.
Elisa carried me.
Oh, wow.
Carried me.
Superwoman.
Ken, yeah, they carried me. No, it was amazing.
I know Ken's in the background
Yeah,
listening. to
Ken,
this.
come on in and say hi.
We did.
Ken was-
We did that LA marathon. That was my goal, to tell you the truth. I was like, you know what? Giving a kidney, life continues. I had this vision in my mind. I am going to do this LA marathon. Nothing's going to stop me. And I did it. And honestly, it was a piece of cake.
It was amazing. We had the best time. And Ken was our Sherpa. And
Yes,
so we had an amazing time. So now we want to bring Mary Beth Berry into this conversation. She's been sitting in the wings here, and I'm so excited to have her come on in.
Thank you so much. It's always so inspiring to, first of all, listen to your crazy, amazing podcast that I use when I exercise if I want to lift up. And now I'm actually on it, and I'm so happy that we're highlighting the amazing, amazing, inspiring work the Schenkmans are doing at Children's Hospital. As they said, I don't think you can walk in that place and walk out and not. I mean, I remember years and years and years ago, I went with one of my sons because he was having a hearing problem, feeling very sorry for myself. He's about 2, till I got into the waiting room, and I'm like, I should just run out of here. I mean, it's just such an amazing place. But I'm so happy you're highlighting that, because so many people don't know any of the things. Like the Schenkmans, they knew nothing. I knew nothing. 1 in 7 people are going to get chronic kidney disease. I mean, and 7 of 9 will get severe kidney disease. That's how common it is.
I know you have a lot of information about this, Mary Beth, and you are, yes, a friend of the podcast. We're so grateful. You're a friend of GOFARR Kidney Fund. You're heavily involved in UCLA, helping kidney patients and their families. Oh, and you are yourself a kidney transplant recipient. We are so happy to have you here, Mary Beth. So I just want to say that everyone has had the experience of being blindsided by something unexpected, like Elisa and Michael.
Right.
And so we would love for you to share the particular moment or time frame when you realized that something was seriously wrong with regards to your kidney-related health.
Well, I had gone to an appointment because I had noticed, the doctor had said my creatinine level was a little elevated. But I went one day and he told me that I had stage 5 renal failure. You can't even comprehend what exactly does that mean. And he didn't have a particular tactful way of telling me, you have end stage renal failure. And he said, you need to go on dialysis as soon as you can. And I remember saying to him, how long do people usually last on dialysis? He said, well, you're in pretty good shape. So you'd have 10 years. And I remember going to my car and leaving and thinking, did he just say I had renal failure? And, here I was thinking, oh, my blood pressure is great. I exercise all the time. Not a clue as to why did I have kidney failure. And as you learned, there are so many kinds of kidney failure. There is, and I didn't really know that. Lots of people have genetic kidney failure. They know it from early on, that there's different forms that pass from generation to generation. And I presume I had heard and knew that diabetes affected your kidney. That was common knowledge for me. Or that I thought perhaps you'd have cancer and it could destroy your kidney. And so I did what came to me naturally. Being the teacher, I called a parent who was a physician at UCLA, and I had taught his 3 sons. And I said, who would you send your mother to if she had kidney failure? And he immediately gave me a name and got me in to see someone. And the diagnosis was correct. I had no diagnosis. They could not figure out, both of my kidneys were dead. They were shriveled. They were non-functioning. They were functioning very, very low. So, once I received that, I realized the next really important thing was, I was facing dialysis. Now, I don't know if you've ever driven by a dialysis center, but I never paid much attention. But they're on every corner, all over California, all over every state. And I had only heard, you get hooked up to a machine for a couple of hours and they wash your blood and it takes the whole day. And the more I looked into that, I realized, oh, you could never travel again because, you couldn't get in a plane and go to another country because you would not be able to have dialysis. You had to eat a very, very strict diet. Things like bananas and tomatoes, all the things I ate, you could never eat again. They were really bad for you. I was doing I'm like, my potassium, of course, I loved bananas. I'd have a couple a day. I could never have enough banana. Stop eating the salad. I didn't understand any of the diet. And fortunately, I got to see an incredible physician at UCLA who is a crazy, amazing human. If I want to tell you that guy, and I'll tell you how he is, crazy, amazing user. You can imagine my state when somebody comes in and they've just got a diagnosis. And, really the average doctor is going to be talking to you about treatment. Who wants to talk about treatment? I want to talk about dying. How is it going to stay alive? And I wasn't going to get to see my grandchildren and all these things I really wanted to do. I was not going to be able to do. And I remember I was waiting in his office, and his office was people were waiting to go into dialysis. So I am sitting there looking around at these people and so struck of like, oh my God, these people are all going into dialysis and to see the doctor. And they look so weak, and they were all ages, really from 20 on up. You'd see, 20-year-olds sitting there. And I remember I was waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And finally, this white coat doctor had the white coat, came running out, and he went over to a patient who looked horrible. And he said, I want to apologize personally to you because I had an emergency in there. So I had to go over to the emergency room with my patient. But I realized I left you out here waiting and no one came out. So tell me what I can do right now for you this second. And furiously, this man who was just terribly sick said, I want a cup of coffee with sugar and cream. And I watched him make it and then say to him, can I drive you home? Because I know there was someone who's going to pick you up, or I will go to your house and see you. What do you want? And I think, that's the doctor? That changed completely. And I think just sitting in this dialysis room, or I'm looking at these other people, I started to think, what's so special about me that I shouldn't have kidney disease? People get it all the time. Families get it all the time. People get cancer. I'm going to take a hold of this myself. And if it's 10 years, it's going to be the best 10 years I ever had. Wow. I am not stopping anything. I am not stopping anything. And so when I met that doctor, I went to see him for the first time. He said to me, I'll never forget, he's talking to me and he said, you're 100% disabled. And I said, how long is this going to take? And he said, what do you mean? I said, I'm late for work and I really like working. And he said, I knew you were going to be a nightmare. He said, and I said to him at the time, I'll never forget, my daughter-in-law was graduating from the Kennedy School. And it was over that weekend. And I said, oh, I'm going. And he started, flying. I go, there's no good doctors in Boston. And he goes, yeah, I could get you somebody and I'm going to it. I mean, what's 7 more days going to really mean? But what normally happens to people, and I want people to hear this, the most common thing my experience should have been is I wouldn't have been feeling well at work. I would have gone to the emergency room. They would have put a port into my neck and I would have started dialysis. That's almost 90% of the people who don't get into a doctor. So therefore, what happened to me when I got to UCLA, to that crazy, amazing doctor, I said to him, what are the choices? There are gotta be choices besides going in center. That sounds awful all day long. And so he laid out for me, what I really appreciated about him, he laid out all the choices they were. None of them were easy. all of them have risk to them, but how much risk are you going to take? And I found out you could do dialysis at home at night. And so I did dialysis 7 nights a week, went to work in the morning, and I did it for 5 years. And I trained myself how to do it. A man had developed a machine for his son. He was an architect. And people don't even know you could do that. They didn't even know the choices. They just went for that. So just knowing what the choices are at the first stage it's not, you have end stage renal failure. You're going to go on dialysis. You're going to go there 3 or 4 times a week and have your kidneys washed and spend all day long at that particular spot, which is very, very depressing. So even when I got to that first step, okay, this is better than I thought it was going to be. It could be so much worse.
Absolutely. So you said after you spent 5 years doing this dialysis, and is that when you found your particular donor, who I want to just mention?
Yes.
That's when the donor came along, and this was a football player who died at a young age, and he donated.
Can I say?
Yes,
right.
go.
I just want to say before this, what I was shocked about, and of course I had no diagnosis why I had it. I had no high blood pressure. I have no diabetes, and they did. I've done genetic testing, and I'm now at UCLA, part of a study still, because they're trying to figure out why did both of my kidney die. The only thing that they came up, which made me a very difficult transplant match. One, you will not believe this. This was enlightening. My husband did not match me. Both of my sons did not match me.
Wow.
My sister didn't match me. I'm like, where did I come from? Obviously, they didn't tell me that. And so that made it really, really, really difficult. Even my sons, both of them, UCLA has something amazing. You can give a kidney to somebody else, and they can find a person to match me. They couldn't do it. I was too difficult to match. So it's almost like this is what I have been dealt with. Part of my personality is the glass is full. The glass is full. I'm old. I had a great career. I've got great kids. I've had a fabulous life. Hey, if this is it, I'm going out with a bang. But, not quickly. I'm going to fight everything I could.
You're not old.
You kept it quiet too, right? Like at school.
I didn't.
Yeah.
Exactly. I kept it really quiet, which in my case, I think looking back on that was stupid. I'm sure you were the same way. It's like, do you want everybody in your business feeling terribly sorry for you? That's part of it. Oh, the poor thing. And so that's part of it. As Elisa talks about the transplant, boy, did I learn how difficult it is to find a match, because there are lots of options. I had moved way beyond that.
That's incredible. I hear a lot of stories of really difficult times trying to find a match, and you sound like you were off the charts. And then lo and behold, you had this miraculous donor come along who was a football player who had died at a young age, who obviously wrote like organ donor maybe on his driver's license and so I'd love you to kind of tell a little bit about that story, and that you mentioned that you're still in touch with his family. So
well, here he is. This is Conrad Rulin.
Are you showing a picture? Oh my gosh.
Can you see him? Look
beautiful.
at that face.
He's beautiful.
Look
oh
at
my
that
gosh.
face.
Look at him.
What really happened is I said I had accepted that this is what it was. And on that particular day, when the call came, I was riding a bike at LA Fitness, and I didn't pick up the phone. And so my husband, who's a judge, was sitting on the bench, and he got the call. He's trying to get a hold of him. And so when they finally got a hold of me, it was my son, who does not work far from here, who was, the donor. He called me up. He drove up to the gym. He goes, well, we have to go to UCLA. I go, like, for what? And he said, well, they called. They have a kidney. I go, no, you misunderstood it. They call for blood work occasionally. They call for different things. And I go, I don't think it's it. And I remember I walked into UCLA, and we went to admissions, and the woman said, oh, you're all cleared for surgery. Go back to get ready for surgery. And so for me, can you imagine? There's no thinking time. I'm like, this can't be really happening. And of course, I have no idea at the hospital is going that Conrad Rulin is his name. He's 29 years old. He is giving 72 body parts that day.
Wow.
And the skin, because number one, 29, a health nut, exercising all the time. He had an aneurysm. And so as you think of it, now that I realize I'm laying in the bed, giddy with happiness, his family, his parents are at the same end of the hall they've lost their son and they've been asked. His mother had gone with him in November. This is December, because he wanted her to get on the donors list. And she said, the organization called One Legacy comes in and deals with the parents. And so she said, going through my mind is like, as she's losing this wonderful son, what if somebody horrible gets his kidney and does terrible in the world? She goes, the worst things go through your mind. So for me, I will just never forget it. The doctor comes in who's going to do the surgery. He does nothing but transplant surgeries at UCLA. I'm totally confident. He looks at him and he goes, oh no. I go, what's the matter? He goes, I know every single thing, every body part. He goes, I never pay attention to height and weight. And he said, you look very small. And that's what I found out. Conrad was, 6'7" and 270 pounds. So
Wow.
I got a giant, high functioning kidney, because as Elisa will tell you, the function of your kidney is everything. A 29-year-old athlete, I have a giant kidney. And he looked at me and he goes, I go, how do you get it in? And the Rulins love this. The doctor looked at me and goes, we shove it in and wrap it around.
Wait, Mary Beth, how tall are you? Tell our audience how tall and tell your size.
Well, now I'm a little under 5 feet. This is 6 years ago. I was 5 feet.
I thought you would be taller now.
So
I would have thought so too.
So he's 6'7" and you're 5 feet tall.
We
5
shove
feet
it in
tall.
there and oh my
And
gosh.
it makes you realize the donor, the people who check that box and are willing. I mean, look at how many people, the heart, the liver, the lungs, the kidney, the skin, because everything was such perfection, and what a major loss, because it was so sudden. He was exercising and had an aneurysm that killed him.
Jeez.
And so, now you have this real heartbreak. I came out of having a transplant. And that's when you realize, what does the kidney function for? Everything I thought was age besides kidney failure was like, I just couldn't believe how good I felt instantly.
I tell you what, they were worried about giving a kidney to someone who wouldn't do something good with it. I think that they know better now. At one of your fundraisers, you featured Mary Beth, right? And the donor family. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience with that?
Well, there's something that the year before in my speech, I only talked about Mary Beth 1 year. And one of my oldest friend, Denise Friedman, comes running over to me.
Because you had heard that Mary Beth was on dialysis, right?
And
you knew her, right?
I mentioned Mary Beth and I mentioned Conrad in my speech. And my oldest friend comes running over to me and she's crying. This is the craziest part of the story. And she's like, Elisa, we know the Rulins. He's her husband's doctor. And she's like, we know everything. Like, this is crazy. So my oldest friend is now crying because I'm telling a story about Mary Beth Berry and how she received this kidney. So we're like, wait a minute, this would be amazing. Because every year we try to honor somebody or tell a beautiful story just to educate people, because people aren't educated. So the following year, we asked the Rulins to come to our event, and Mary Beth too, and we were able to put everybody together and just celebrate the beauty of it. Also respect, obviously, the Rulins for their loss, but it was just, it came full circle. And there's been so many crazy parts about this whole experience where we're all connected. Like Mary Beth is sitting here talking about Dr. Anjay Rastogi from UCLA. My mom was going through lung cancer. I'm in an elevator. I turn and there's a man that's just, I look, there's a doctor in my elevator and it says nephrologist. I'm like, you're a nephrologist? And I'm like, I gave a kidney to my son. He gets off. This is how beautiful this man is. Exactly what Mary Beth says. He gets off on the floor with me. And he's like, why are you here? And I'm like, my mom has cancer, lung cancer, and is terminally ill. And I start bawling. This man takes me in his arms. I've never met him before. And is holding me, comes in to see my mom. The next thing I know, he not only did I discover, did Mary Beth's transplant, recently our head researcher, Dr. Laura Perrin, just gave a kidney to her husband. And guess who her doctor is? Who her husband's doctor is? Dr. Rastogi. And now Gabriel, this is the craziest part. He just aged out of Children's Hospital, which was the hardest thing for a mother who's been there for 21 years. And now he's part of the core kidney.
Really?
Dr. Rastogi. So there have been all of these like incredible moments that have brought all of us together slowly. And what's even crazier is Mary Beth was, the head of admissions at Brentwood School. And I came in, my oldest daughter Shelby's there. I come in with Gabe and Amanda, and they all thought I was crazy because and we can talk about this for a second. We have a child with chronic kidney disease. I don't want my kid coming home with a stomach flu. He can't get sick because he could end up in the hospital. And everybody thought I was this crazy mother, probably. We were at a fundraiser for the Core Kidney Program recently. And I'm like, Mary Beth, did everyone think I was crazy? She's like, oh, yeah.
Well, it was ahead of her time.
But then she looked at me and she said, but I understand why now.
Well, you were asking for wipes in the room, right? I mean,
yeah, I just wanted the kids to wipe their hands a little, maybe clean because it was just, it was those really simple little things. I wasn't like crazy, but I was trying to keep my kid healthy along with all the other kids, truthfully. And now after COVID, now they do have wipes in the room. I was just out of the game. What can I say?
Absolutely. So I want to educate our audience a little bit more on just kind of give some ideas. And I know that Mary Beth, you did some research with your people there at UCLA with some great statistics. You've mentioned a couple of them. Would you just say for our audience some more of those? Is that okay, Mary Beth? You have some in front of you.
Yeah, absolutely. It says, about 2 in 5 adults have advanced chronic kidney disease and don't even have any idea they have it. I mean, it's shocking the amount of people who will go into an emergency room and be told they have chronic kidney disease. I was very proud. I knew what my blood pressure was, what my my lipids were, what kind of shape I never knew what my creatinine was. You have to know what is your creatinine. It is the most routine, simple urine test because you should know that in chronic kidney disease, there's 5 stages. 1, 2, and 3, they now are able to stop it. They can stop it by diet, by medication. So many people end up with chronic kidney disease. I have just found this in the last 5 years that I'm dealing with people. They were taking a back medication for back pain. They were taking a stomach medicine and it damages your kidney. You should routinely ask, when you're given a medication, how does this affect your kidney or affect another medication you take? So on your regular health checkup, make sure you're getting a urine test and you know what that is and you have informed yourself about those kinds of numbers. Because, I mean, I've learned from that often people will come in, and when you come into the emergency room, they really look at the medication you're taking, whatever it is. And they go from there trying to figure out what you have. And you could have medications that really clash with each other that would cause you problems. So if you're in that kidney world, that's the biggest thing. Anybody else listening to this, I would really inform myself. If you do have chronic kidney disease, you should know what level you are in it and know what the options are for dialysis. They are changing dramatically. And really inform yourself if anyone in your family has kidney disease. Be knowing about the transplants, because the transplants, there's now, I have a friend who has just vouchered a kidney to UCLA. And she's vouched it for her granddaughter who has genetic kidney disease. Her daughter doesn't need it, like Gabe. Gabe could have been vouchered a kidney. As I said, there's so many pairs and so many exchanges going on. Wow. Inform yourself about it. And I mean, one of the biggest things is on Thursday, there's a new training coming out. Like, the number one way really is to advocate for yourself by making your own proposition, your own film. People are making their own films to get a kidney, to have people help them, because I know so many altruistic people. I just recently met a woman who's 28, works in Hollywood, very successful, who decided she wanted to do good in the world. So she just donated a kidney. She has no idea who got it. She said, I was making a lot of money. I'm really healthy. I wanted to do something like that. So educate yourself.
Wow. And be your own advocate. So we've heard from Mary Beth some advice. Elisa and Michael, do you have any advice for people who are maybe dealing with kidney disease for for just finding out about it, what some first steps, things like that?
I just wanted to say kidney disease is labeled a silent killer because people it's a lack of physical symptoms. It is a silent killer. Wow. So that's exactly what Mary Beth was saying, is all of a sudden you may end up in the hospital because you're so sick, because you have no idea what's going on with your kidneys. So in other words, go get go see your doctor every year, get all your blood work done, which if you're seeing a good doctor, they're going to check everything, obviously.
Do they have to check the urine as well? Like, I'm confused.
They have to.
It's not blood and urine.
But do you ask them to please do this test, or do they automatically do it?
Well, they probably, it depends what age you are, but I would hopefully think that they would definitely check your creatinine if they're doing an entire panel of blood.
Yeah, you were saying that it can affect any age. So
yeah, I mean, look, it can affect any age. And that, by the way, we know
creatinine.
A lot of children who all of a sudden find out that they have kidney disease because of we've heard stories of people having injuries, and then they go in and then they find out that, oh, wow, I have some other type of kidney disease. Right. I mean,
well, as we're getting to the end of our conversation, this is just so powerful. Since we're with you, Elisa and Michael, if people wanted to know more about what you do, the GOFARR Kidney Fund, any resources available to them, how would they follow you or access those?
We are in the process of getting a brand new website connected to CHLA that we're working on.
You guys have an Instagram, right?
It's called GOFARR Kidney. That's it, on Instagram. You can always, send me an inbox.
And could you spell that? It's GOFARR
and the word kidney.
GOFARR Kidney. Okay, on Instagram. Great.
We've raised over $10 million for kidney research for the years. And that, every dollar, I'm not joking, every single dollar goes to bedside programs at Children's, where we're helping families post-transplant who need things, who, these kids, bringing them toys or, redoing the dialysis center, but also the lab and what we've done. And we're working on kidney cancer. We're working on special diets. We're working on kidney on a chip. We're working on multiple things to help cure this disease.
Hallelujah.
Mary Beth, you are involved in the core kidney team at UCLA. Can you explain what they do just so that people understand, and then how people can access them or any information on your side of this with the UCLA group there?
Well, when I got my transplant and got out of the bed, I said, okay, what are we going to do? We formed the core kidney program because I was hell bent and determined that what I went through and did not know. All I wanted to do was to talk to somebody who was experiencing the same thing. So today we have formed a team called the Circle of the Core. And I can't tell you, you have the doctors, we have everything in place for help, but there's nothing to call somebody up and say, how did you make that decision about how to do dialysis? How did you decide that you were going to work and not work? How did you make of these kinds of choices? What did you do for your mental health? And just reaching out to people. I mean, I can tell you, a daughter called me about a week ago about her mother who was refusing to do nothing. And I said to her, I met her in Brentwood. We had coffee. The husband came. When she got through with me, I was going to really help her move beyond just shutting down and saying, she was like, I'm not doing anything, because she was terrified. And I said to her, me too. So that group, but Dr. Rastogi does the first of every single month, online, free chats, kidney chat. This is a world-renowned doctor, free, once a month.
And how do people access that?
Go to the Core Kidney, UCLA. The chats are all over there. And you'll see a list of people like me. And what we try to do is we try to match what your experience was. We'll put somebody who'll meet with you and talk to you and meet you for coffee and meet with the family who actually has been dealing with, you had kidney cancer or you're 30 years old or you need this. That's what we really do. Meet with people, really help them, tell them, hey, how did you get on a plane? All of those kinds of questions. Because what you need to really talk to other people, well, what did you actually eat? How did you do it? So the information's all there. It's a big supportive group. UCLA Core Kidney.
Great. Elisa and Michael and Mary Beth, you guys, is there anything that we haven't covered that you'd really like our audience to know?
I would say, for me, definitely, I think you've really hit it. If anything, you have to advocate for yourself. You have to take charge of your own health and you have to ask questions. It's the battle of your life. You can't be passive.
Honestly, I think it's to constantly believe that, it's going to be okay. And if there's one thing I know about anybody who's in the kidney world, especially if you're on dialysis or anything, you're a fighter. And you're going to continue to fight to live a beautiful life. And we're trying so hard to cure this disease. And I'm not going to give up, that's for sure. I mean, this started 21 years ago. And if anything, we're only getting stronger and bigger and uniting and getting the word out because kidney disease needs attention.
Thank you. Michael?
I mean, I was going to say, and I kind of said it earlier, not everyone has their thing, but as you go through life, most people are going to run into challenges. I would never judge anyone because everyone responds a different way to, how they deal with it. I think Mary Beth, looking back, probably you would do differently. You
absolutely. Lesson learned.
Yeah. And the way we dealt with it was turning a negative situation, a challenging situation, to a positive, which for us, that's how we dealt with it. But I think everyone, if I would encourage anyone, if they're in a tough situation, a challenging situation, reach out to friends and family, and you'll find that, people respond and they back you, and it's an amazing experience.
Wow. You all have had so many insightful things to say. I mean, your stories are all riveting, emotional, and impactful. Thank you so much. In a moment, we're going to end our interview with a clip from a fantastic video that Gabe's twin sister, Amanda Schenkman, made about GOFARR Kidney Fund. But first, we just want to thank you all. Thank you, Elisa. Thank you, Michael. And thank you, Mary Beth, for the important work you're doing to help others in their kidney-related health journeys and beyond. You all are indeed crazy amazing.
I told him he would need a transplant and dialysis the first time we met when he was 8 days old. The first thing that they said was, well, if he's going to need a transplant, tell us what the problems are and what we can do to help with research, etc. And so that's how they've really gotten involved.
GOFARR stands for Gabriel's Organization Funding All Renal Research. We call it GOFARR because we believe that we're going to go far. I don't just live for that for my son. I live for that for all the children and all the adults and anybody who is suffering from kidney disease, because kidney disease needs attention.
Since I was very, very little, I'm just really proud of my parents and my family and my sister and my brother and all the work we've put into this charity.
Kidney disease is a very serious problem, and just in the United States, there are more than 100,000 people waiting for kidney transplant.
The GOFARR lab is doing things that nobody else is doing. There are many other laboratories around the country working on kidney disease, but very few labs are taking the tack that we're taking. So fundamental understanding, discovery, and eventually treatment.
We are regenerating new tissue in the laboratory and looking at cell therapies as another way to induce a cure.
If you look at it from a micro perspective, it could just be about my brother, but over the past couple of years, it stemmed into research. It stemmed into changing the way that the dialysis center looks. And I think that's what's been so inspiring to me, that my parents are really striving not just to help one kid, but to help everyone.
In the future, or even now, I would always want to help people that need kidneys, because I know what it's like and I've gone through it. I'm a fighter. I'm ready for what's ahead of me, and I know I'll get through it.
You can count on me to be there when you fall. I put you on my shoulders, body, soul, and all. I'll give you what you need, nothing but the best, because I've been blessed by your sweet love.
Wow, wow, and wow. That is our show for today.
Wait, can I also say it? Wow.
A very heartfelt thank you to Elisa and Michael Schenkman and Mary Beth Berry for sharing their remarkable journeys. I am going to go to my doctor's stat and get my creatinine checked. I can't even say that right, but I'm going to say, hey, check my kidney levels.
I think the doctor will know what you mean.
I think they will. If you've enjoyed today's episode and think it would be meaningful and helpful for someone you know, please be a crazy, amazing human and let them know about us.
Remember to make sure and subscribe to the Crazy Amazing Humans podcast, just like Mary Beth did, wherever you get your podcasts. We've also filmed the podcasts, so you can check us out on the Crazy Amazing Humans YouTube channel. Make sure and leave comments while you're there. We love to hear what you're thinking.
That's right. And most of all, we want to make sure to thank you for being with us. Remember that every little kindness has the potential to create crazy, amazing human experiences, one person at a time.
In honor of today's podcast, we again want to encourage you to become an organ donor. As you've heard, you could be the one to give the gift of a new lease on life to someone in need. You'll make an impact for not only the recipient, but their families and loved ones as well. Happy Kidney Awareness Month. I'm Jefferson Denham.
And I'm Katrina Carlson. Stay healthy, stay connected, and we'll see you next time right here on the Crazy Amazing Humans podcast.
I want you to feel, I want you to feel something crazy, crazy, amazing.
If you have any questions or comments about today's episode, please make sure to write us at crazyamazinghumans@gmail.com.